As mentioned, I'm going to talk about our adoption in GSK, but really focusing on sort of the learning and component. And I'm going to try to do it through, the need for speed tagline, which of course is Top Gun. So, what I want to talk about is learning and change and how it's really difficult with pressing deadlines. A lot of people learn by doing. So, in order to be able to do learning and change, how do organizations enable people to learn by doing with those pressing deadlines? So, why can I talk about this? I'm a director of data science at GSK. I lead our enablement, and I'm really passionate about learning and teaching. To give you an example, right now I'm trying to learn how to draw for my son, who asked me to be able to draw, our dog, things like that. But I'm trying to increase my abilities there, and so I'm really passionate about this. So in 2020, GSK Biostats, we decided to make our primary language for statistical reporting. So what did we start doing? We started training in large in-person and virtual classes because that's what we knew how to do. And that's what we did last time we had a large technology change. So we started to apply this logic basically. Let's create large in-person training initiatives and classes. Let's provide and create training and documentation for study teams. And we thought that was enough. Figured study teams would begin to use R easily and create those outputs for regulatory agencies. Job done. But it didn't work. We weren't seeing the R uptake that we were expecting. We trained about 80% of all GSK Biostats employees, and we figured, oh, we've hit 80%. We should start seeing more outputs created for these regulatory agencies. We didn't see that. So we had to sit down and reflect on what was wrong and why was adoption so hard? Why were people not doing it? Why were people not using R? When we sat down and thought about it and we talked to a few individuals, this is what we learned. An individual would take an R training class, and then 12 to 18 months would pass, and then they would be able to use R in a new study. But during those 12 to 18 months, they forgot everything in that class, and they had to redo all their training on the fly. And that was really difficult. Having to do that relearning was really difficult to convince leadership, study lead programmers, and other stakeholders to use R for our studies. The other big issue that we learned about is when we did our training in these large in-person groups, it was you had to learn a lot of new things. It wasn't just like, how do I program in R, but it was understanding how to use packages in the ecosystem of packages, how to use version control, where we stored a lot of our documentation and training materials. It was how to think about data, because how you think about data and use data and transform data in other languages is very different than how you do it in R. So it was not only that we were training people how to use R, but it was everything around R as well that we were trying to train on. And it was a lot for people to take on at one time. So what we ended up deciding to do is proposing a change to our biostats leadership team. So what we decided to do was no more classes. We're going to move all our training into on-demand training and documentation. And we're going to create a small agile pod of subject matter experts and data scientists that are going to sit side by side with study teams in a rotation format and train them on R. So this agile pod, we decided, is going to focus purely on supporting and mentoring individuals in biostats and not run large training classes. So that's what we ended up deciding to do. And this small agile pod is called AccelerateR. So how does AccelerateR work? We try to break it up into four sections: prereqs, onboarding, delivering, and closing out. And this is what we try to tackle over 10 weeks with our study teams. And I'll walk you through it at a high level. From a prereq standpoint, what we do is we work with, we identify a clinical study team that wants to work with us. And then we work with them to make sure they have the right system access. It seems kind of silly at first, but this is really important because not everyone has access to the appropriate systems in order to be able to use R for creation of outputs. So that was the first thing that we make sure that everyone is able to do. Next, we do a week-long onboarding that's focused on training. We might do, if the team that we're working with has a high R maturity, we might do some very niche specific R packages, like focusing on metadata or other topics. If a team has low R maturity, we might focus on the basics, tidyverse, plotting, tabling, things like that. But we do a week-long training in order to be able to make sure that we're all aligned. After that, we do basically 4 2-week sprints to deliver an agreed upon backlog of activities. And the AccelerateR team, this agile pod, sits with the team, with the clinical study team, and provides code review, support, answering questions, being there to answer and support over a 24/7 period for those 8 weeks. So the goal is to set the study team up with not only the ability to use R, but also the confidence in being able to understand how to use R, where to look for answers, as well as if they don't have an answer, how best to solve that problem. And then finally, there's a closeout session where we focus on trying to take sort of what we learned with the study team and create template code and example code and organically build up our code library. That way, each study team is not recreating the wheel with new R code in order to solve the same problems. So with AccelerateR, we did encounter some challenges that we had to reflect on. First off, when the time that we engage with the team is really important. As everyone here knows, study teams, they can run for a really long time. Well, we found that AccelerateR, if you're able to target sort of 8 months before a submission deadline for the creation of outputs, that is a prime period because there's enough urgency from the team in order to be able to make sure that you have full attention and full focus on the work. And if you go beyond that, 12 months, 14 months, 24 months, you just aren't able to get the same engagement because it's a lower priority for the team. The other thing that we learned a lot about is just the steep learning curve that these tools have. I don't know if anyone here has ever tried to teach how to use Git and GitHub in organization, but it's very easy to go from, wow, this is really hard, I don't know how to use this, to getting comfortable with Git pulls, Git commits and pushes, to, oh, I feel really good, I was able to successfully do a pull request. And then all of a sudden get your first merge conflict and have no idea what to do. Some things went really well. We were able to introduce a lot of new technologies, R and GitHub, etc. We were able also to create a route from the business to our central R engineering team to create, open source packages that help the business. A great example of this is Slushy, that helps us deal with frozen and managed environments, as well as provided an avenue for people who had a strong interest in contributing to the community, our training in order to be able to start contributing to those open source packages. We also created a lot of organizational resilience, which was great. There's always going to be peaks and troughs, but being able to have this confidence allowed us as an organization to become really, really comfortable with R as a language for creating our outputs. So at the end of the day, how do organizations enable people to learn by doing with these pressing deadlines? It's not through giant training classes. It's not through, large initiatives like that. It's small support, sitting side by side for being able to create and use these new tools in order to be able to have the confidence to create the deliverables that, study teams are expected. So I have hit my time. So Melvin, over to you.